This is a great forum. I wish, as I told you the other day, I wish that the section that I was chair of, we had done this. I think this would have been a great thing, and hopefully it become a proven practice across ASQ. Uh, so for me, I'm a retired naval officer, surface warfare officer specifically. I did 23 years in the Navy. I started off as enlisting in 1989, and I was commissioned in 1997, retired in 2012. Um, Starting in 2012, I also became a runner for the team in training, which is a group of runners that get coaching in support of fundraising for Leukemia Lymphoma Society. Very happy with that group. I was also the past chair of ASQ section 1128 in Tidewater. They still meet in Virginia Beach, but they encompass all the South Side. I'm a knowledge manager right now for McKean Defense Group. We're an employee-owned company, and we support life cycle engineering, primarily maintenance modernization of surface ships. We also support NAVC and warfare centers, as well as Army watercraft, and a lot of other Department of Defense companies and organizations. At night, about once a week, I work as an adjunct professor for Stratford University in the business department. This term I'm teaching an undergrad course in entrepreneurial leadership, but I also teach project management. So I'll be teaching that to the master's level next term. I'm a co-author of a book that recently won an Axiom Award, which is a business award. We won silver in the Women and Minorities Business for our book, The Refractive Thinker, Volume 11, Women Leadership. And one of my favorite things to do is speak at conferences. Not only get to meet a lot of great people, but get to hear the other people speak that I may have missed. So you can see a lot of places I've spoken at, and I'm hoping I have a couple more papers out that I'm hoping to speak at this year. And if you're going to be at any of those conferences when they come up, please let me know. I'd be glad to meet with you. As far as this topic goes, I want to get right to the irony of it, is that it's about, you'll hear me talk about face-to-face discussions being the importance, and the fact that I'm giving you this brief over a webinar and I can't see anybody is pretty ironic to me. But the the importance of the information, I think, is going to resonate with most of us who have customers that we support, and we may not be tied to their desks. So if there's any questions during this briefing, Norval's looking at the chat. I have this full screen, so any questions he'll come in. Please don't think I'm ignoring you. I definitely want to answer your questions, and there will be time after this. Okay, so this is one of my favorite quotes here. Information communication. Two words, information communication, are often used interchangeably, but they signify quite different things. Information is giving out, communication is getting through. And the reason I think this is so important is because you'll hear things like, well, I sent you that email, or didn't you hear me tell you that? Well, people don't always take that as actionable or understand what the message is getting across. So just keep in mind when you're talking to people that sometimes what you're saying may not be fully understood. So take the time to slow down, explain more. Just remember that that the information communication are not the same. All right, so the agenda, it's pretty straightforward here. I'm not going to read it to you, but I will, talk to you. My intent is to talk to you about knowledge management and CRM, customer relationship management. The what's in it for you, the what's in it for the organization. I'm going to talk about how I've used communication to benefit the organization, as well as an example that I picked up on the military. So I know that lessons learned are not strictly military, but the format is something I've only used in the military, and so it's been very helpful to me. And if you decide to adopt this way of doing a lesson learned, then feel free. I didn't invent it. It's just a good practice that I can use, and it's been successful for me with my customers. All right, first, what's knowledge management? And I want to get away from the idea that knowledge management is an IT-based system, that knowledge can only be managed if you tell somebody where it is on a server or on a site. I think those all have their places, but really knowledge management is about capturing, creation, transferring, sharing information. It's about employee empowerment. I fully believe that if you employ or empower your employees, give them what we used to call pre-planned responses, give them their direction, provide them the knowledge that they can use, that they can learn how to train themselves to learn better, and then once you give them the direction, they can go forward and do what they need to do until they have to come back to you for more guidance, or if they have a clarification question. It does support the positive firm performance in your organization. When you give employees the power to make decisions based on some already pre-scripted information, your performance will go up. You'll see less wait time, more value added. It depends on profit, not profit, how your profits are going. But what it's going to do is it's going to show value throughout your organization. You're going to see retention of your personnel. You're going to see less transferring of people out of your organization because they feel like their opinion matters and their knowledge matters. You also get rid of the fear of sharing knowledge is going to have somebody get your job later on. Once employees get the knowledge that they know how to use and that they understand that sharing it is a good thing for everybody, it's a win-win for everybody. You also educate and share lessons learned, which again I'll talk about later through the issue discussion recommendation. But sharing a lesson learned, it doesn't hurt anybody. It's nothing but positive way of doing business. Even if it's a sort of negative lesson learned, things that shouldn't be done, that allows people to know that, hey, this has already been done, and maybe if we do this, we can make it better. But it's just another way of managing knowledge. You get the information. It doesn't do any good if you've done something really good if you don't share it and it goes on to do better things. And then finally, we have a formalized clause now in ISO. When ISO changed from 2008 to 2015, part of the new compliance required the new organizational clause, and it's clause 7.1.6 organizational knowledge. And what's really applicable here, because there's a lot of interpretation of that clause, but what's really applicable here as far as customer relationship management is that it talks about organizational knowledge being used for your company, for your organization, but that you gather it through external sources, and it explicitly calls out gathering knowledge from customers or external providers. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind as far as sharing knowledge, because sharing knowledge is going to not only empower your employees, but it's going to help your customers. And if you're in a market like I am, where we're a defense contractor, it's important to understand your customer because that feeds into future work. So I'm going to talk about the modes of knowledge creation, because this is back, as you can see in the figure numbering. In 1994, Nanaka and Toyama and Kono came up with the modes of knowledge creation, or the SECI model, for socialization, externalization, internalization, and communication. And what it is it takes a tacit knowledge, which is difficult to formalize, and what's known to you. What do you know that's not necessarily written down, as well as explicit knowledge that can be shared, formalized processes, a pre-planned response, directions. It takes that tacit knowledge, converts it to explicit knowledge through those different patterns. It's a flow. It's not meant to be hard stops anywhere, but it's going to be a continual growing cycle. So as you bring more people into your organization, teach them what you know. Teach them what you know, teach them what is written down, and then as they grow, their knowledge will turn to tacit knowledge. They'll be able to explain to the next person that comes in. So there's a lot to be learned from that, but you can also apply that to customer relationship management. As you begin to know your customer, you begin to build that information in your head that says, okay, this customer likes his briefs like one way, or he likes to be told things in less than a minute for something else. He likes stand-up meetings as opposed to sit-down 1-hour meetings. It's really learning your customers. Kind of like if you're a parent and you have a child, you know your child more than your child thinks you know. You want to do that with your customer. You want to know your customer better than your customer thinks you know them, so that you can anticipate what they need. And with that, it'll come back to your organization. You bring that knowledge back to your organization and to teach others how to work with those customers. And with that, you can also transit that to customers of similar interest. So what is customer relationship management? Okay, so when you get a contract or some sort of agreement about what your job is, you get your statement of work. Well, customer relationship management is more than just your statement of work. It's about understanding, again, the format of what they want the product in, or if they want to be told something, maybe they want to wait till the end of the day to talk to you, or maybe they would rather have you in person. If you have a meeting that's away from where they normally work, do they want to meet afterwards and debrief it real quickly? Stuff that may seem obvious to you is really your tacit knowledge. So as you begin to grow with that customer, you're going to understand those customer needs better. You're going to understand requirements faster and more easily, and you're going to be able to use that to better source your products and services, as well as provide the right people to support them. If you find out they want somebody that's got experience in a certain area, and so you have 2 people to choose from, you pick the person that's got the experience, but you also might want to send another person to learn more about that customer, because they may see something with a different set of eyes that can provide you more information. And it's also going to provide another venue to the knowledge of the customers, because you're going to use that to enhance your business intelligence. Now, if you've ever worked in business development, you understand how important that business intelligence is, to know how important the customer relationship management is. So once you know that customer, you may be able to see a little bit further than what the words on those pages of the solicitation are. So it's very valuable when you understand how important your organization can be for itself. It's not just, people aren't just coming to work to make a paycheck and support that customer. Through supporting that customer, you're building your organization. And so as you see the bumper sticker at the bottom, the people are at the center. People really are. You make your employees happy, you share your information, you see them grow, and with that, they build the customer relationship management through your own knowledge management, which in turn builds your organization knowledge management. So it's full circle with that. So on the alignment, you'll see knowledge management feeds into the customer relationship management into your organization. What's really missing here is you could really build from your organization back into knowledge management, or you could take it straight to CRM, so that you are working on this alignment to support a future state that you want to manage your tacit and explicit knowledge and help lead your organization to support your customers better. And in turn, that cultivates CRM to better support the customers, but increase your business intelligence and support your organizational workforce. So it's aligned with the SECI model as well, but in this case, knowledge management imports into customer relationship management, and the customer relationship management in turn supports your organization, makes it better. And so people, as you have your workforce grows, your knowledge management is going to grow all around, and your customers, you should see a better return on investment from your customers, from your time and your knowledge sharing. Okay. Again, I talked about earlier, your information and communication are 2 separate things. Well, George Bernard Shaw said, single biggest problem of communication is that the illusion is it's taken place. For those of you that are married, you probably know what I mean. When you say, hey, honey, remember I told you about so-and-so? Well, they may not. They may just give you the uh-huh. So you want to make sure when you talk to your customer and when you talk to your fellow workers or the personnel that support you or that you support, that you're getting across the message you want to get across. You don't want to come across saying that, giving them a blast message and then them not remember anything that you talked about because they were distracted. So again, the irony of a webinar talk about face-to-face is going to be, it's a little bit humorous, but for me, it's important to know. So what's in it for you? What's in it for your organization? As I talked about earlier, it supports business development, proposals, capture, teaming, partners. So when you're working with your partners, if you come up on a team, you may not want to share everything you know, but it might make you more valuable to your partners, and they may be willing to give you more of the work share. So just gotta keep in mind that you don't want to give away all your information, but a little bit may help in getting a little more percentage or a little more full-time equivalents on your contracts. For human resource management, hiring, firing, succession planning is important, but the customer relationship management, if you're hiring somebody and you need to know that they have a certain expertise, it's not just what's on the resume, but do they know the customer? Do you know the customer? Do you know what kind of person they would want to work with? While the customer doesn't get to choose who you hire, it's important to have a good match. Kind of like dating. You want to set them up with somebody. It's a blind date when you hire a new person. You want to set them up with people that you think they get along with and they can work well together. Because in the end, you're providing a service or a product there. So that takes you to business services, processes, and procedures. Do you know the process and procedures of your company as well as what the customer needs? Can your internal processes and procedures support the customer's process and procedures? Maybe you're doing a good thing within your company that you could support your customer with, but also maybe what you're doing for your customer can support your own company with, such as knowledge management. If you have a good practice within your company, you may be able to transfer that practice to your customer. They don't need to know it's something you do in your company, but they may like it. It may work. And if it does, your company, your organization will know how to do that because they're already doing it. Also, as I spoke earlier, it leads to professional growth. So you have personnel that are willing to stay with your company. They're willing to stay supporting those customers, or they may want to grow and support other customers, but it gives you more opportunities to manage and coach, and to lead and mentor people. Sharing knowledge, it opens people up to being more relaxed around you and willing to come with you for questions, so that they don't have to come to you when something bad happens. They come to you if they're in doubt, or they want to find out, hey, how would you do this? So the knowledge transfers don't stop just because you've explained it once or twice, but also the knowledge that you share with your workforce, it supports the customers. In some ways, you can't tell it right away, but you can tell it after being somewhere for like 3 to 6 months. You'll be able to say, okay, well, how does this work for you? And maybe your customer is very happy, or maybe your customer has something they want to change. And you take that information back to your organization, and then that's going to lead to positive performance all around. So we have a grading criteria on our contracts called CPARs. And so you want to be able to get the highest scores in your CPARs when it comes to evaluating your work. And so if you understand your customer and you understand what your customer likes, and you follow, of course, the statement of work as well as the tacit knowledge you have for the customer, that is going to lead to positive firm performance. All right. So the illusions of conversational touch points. This is where I'm the irony of it. When we talk about talking to your customer, it's, we know that there's going to be times where we have to send emails or phone calls or do video teleconferencing or put stuff on a SharePoint portal. But, there's goods and bads of others. When you're a global company and you are not with your customer, not tied to their desk, these may become your way of doing business. I'm just saying that customer relationship management is best, in Cynthia Young's opinion, is best when it comes to a face-to-face conversation, because in video conferencing, I know a lot of you have been on video conferences where, including this webinar, where you may be doing your day work and listening to this on an earbud somewhere, may not be totally paying attention, because it's not the closest alligator to the boat right at the second. Phone calls, you can be multitasking, just like I was saying. Emails, people can ignore them. They can open them up, read them, say, okay, I'll do that later, and then you might not get a response for a couple of days. And then the IT-based repositories, a lot of time you can't find the information you need unless there's strict directions or somebody sends you a link. And even then, you don't know the stay time on it. You don't know how long it's good for. It may be a couple years old. It may be processes have changed. So you need to know that tacit knowledge of the person working with you. They can tell you, oh yeah, that changed 6 months ago. So, it's important to know that these are all good avenues of talking to your customer, but, face-to-face, it has its benefits. So you'll see that I feel that knowledge management through sharing and conversion from tacit to explicit knowledge is your largest benefit. If you're not learning from somebody you work with, or you're not answering a question, because answering questions sometimes brings out that tacit knowledge you just don't know. Also, learning explicit knowledge and being able to get comfortable enough with it where it becomes tacit knowledge for you. I think that's the biggest benefit of face-to-face conversation with your customer, because when you're with your customer, you're part of your customer's team. You're not just a person who's supporting your customer from afar. I can see that. I have 2 customers that are San Diego and Hawaii, so supporting them, it's definitely not face-to-face. Maybe once a year I'm face-to-face with them. But, the customers I have locally, I have one customer locally, I just met with them this week, and we got more done in that 1 hour than I've done with the other customers, over a series of phone calls, just because of the time and the other distractions that come with doing your job. So, it takes into account, you get to be part of your customer's team. And you're also operationalizing your knowledge. You're putting that knowledge to use. The moment you step into your customer's office, or you get in the conference room with them, or you get somewhere where you're talking with them face to face, it's not like you can say, okay, I'll get back to this later and then go look it up. You're using that knowledge right then and right there, and they understand better that you know your job and that you know their needs. And then you're also getting their attention. Unless they have a phone that's continually going off, you have their attention for the time that you've set up. And that's really the best you can hope for, is that your customers are busy, so that when you're sharing that knowledge with your customers, if they ask you to find something, or you're doing something for them, building a product, building a brief, or even if you're in manufacturing, you're building something that they need to see to approve, you've got their attention. And I think that that's a pretty good thing too. All right, so one recommendation for meeting with your customer is to have an in-person weekly battle rhythm. So you have your standard meeting. Now, it may not happen that every week. You may have to go for once a month. You may go for biweekly, or you may go for stand-up in an agile type of situation where you go maybe 15 minutes a day, and you want to make sure that you're just quickly updating people on what's going on. And you see the row of the benefits there: the deterrence of misunderstanding, prevention, last-minute surprises, review lessons learned. You get to reduce your in-process review pain. If anybody's sat through an in-process review, when you go through your tasks and you're updating them on the status of a project, you could really probably answer all those questions ahead of time, rather than people getting stuck on 1 or 2 things and dragging the whole meeting down. So, it's a weekly battle rhythm, keeps those things from popping up. You'll also get emails and phone calls in between, but that's a big help when it comes to in-process reviews, is to have weekly battle rhythms. It supports timely change management, so you're not waiting a month down the road to find out, okay, I didn't like this from your customer. I didn't like this. I want this changed. You can change a little more frequently, unless they're one of the type of people that manage off of the email. It gives you a pretty good heads up to support what they need, and to get your team in place to support the change. And then it opens up for your discussions for the way ahead. So it's a good thing. I'm not a big fan of having meetings all the time, but I found with customers it's good to at least check in with them at least weekly if you have a long-term project that you're working. All right, so for lessons learned, this is something I use, like I said, primarily on a ship, because we'd have to write this in a Navy message we'd have to send out, and they want to keep these as short as possible because they get pretty lengthy. So in your issue discussion recommendation, your issue is best kept at 1 sentence. State the problem. This is a fact-based approach. It takes the emotion out of it. It's no blaming. What it is just state the facts, kind of like I can't remember, just facts, ma'am. That TV show a long time ago. But your issue, what's your one sentence? It would also be at the title of your section, but what's your one issue? Then you discuss it in a paragraph, maybe two at the most, but you're going to talk about the background of you're going to set it up, and then you're going to say why it was a problem, or what was the problem, and then you'd close it out by saying this is how you solve the problem, or if the problem hasn't been solved yet, what's your recommendations? Because you may have to get a vote in from the customer. Like I said, if your customer gives you pre-planned responses saying, hey, if this happens, do this, if this happens, do this, this is what you can do. Then you don't have to ask a recommendation. But if you have to do that, then your recommendation would be either what you did or what you plan to do, which are possible ways of solving it. So this is the example. The first line is your one sentence, your problem. The weekly data analytic reporting is not being completed on time. So it's a standard thing. You find things that may not happen on time, but in the discussion you see that the customer has to go to customer has to take data to the contractor. So the contractor doesn't have access to something, and the customer has to give it to them. Well, you don't want to tell a customer, hey, you're making me late, but you need to be upfront and say, hey, this restricts the time that I can get you the data analytics on the information. And so your recommendation is to standardize the time frame to gather data that allows you to perform the data analysis and submit your report on time. So that's a very simple, short and to the point issue discussion recommendation. It's meant to incite discussion. It's not meant to be a blaming session when you do these, but it's very simple. It's very easy to use, and you can adapt it to your organization and as well as to your customers. So it's a win-win for that. Okay. All right. So here, this quote here talks about hoarding knowledge ultimately erodes your power. I believe that hoarding knowledge, when people are afraid to share knowledge or take that task knowledge and share it with people they work with or that they work for or that work for them, a lot of people are afraid to share it because they think it's going to work them out of a job because they're sharing information with other people and that one day they'll get their job. Well, you ultimately want to train your successor, but you also want to be able to move up. And I know that nobody wants to not be able to take vacation because they don't want to know something. That makes it impossible really for a company to be flexible too. So if a company wants to use you one place with one customer, they wouldn't be able to use you with somebody else if you're the only one that knows that information. So that really hurts the organization as a whole. So just something to think about. Don't keep knowledge to yourself. Knowledge sharing is a great way to not only win friends and influence people, but it's a good way of ensuring your organization knows how to support across the board and not just have one person. All right, so the key takeaways from this today is to incorporate customer relationship management into your knowledge management and organizational processes. Talked about the issue discussion recommendation format for lessons learned, which you can share in a briefing environment or you can share in an email, however you want to. And then ensure alignment between your customer needs and your needs, because while the organization is supporting the customer, the organization is also supporting itself. And so in the end, all knowledge is connected to other knowledge. The fun is in making the connections. And I came across this. I've never heard of this guy, but I thought it was pretty interesting that they incorporate fun into this, because a lot of people think work isn't fun. But if you can share knowledge and you can help other people, that's really fun. I really think it is. All right, and Norval and everybody else, that's all I have for you today. Are there any questions?
Well, thank you, Dr. Young. We do have time for questions today. So if you do have a question, we're going to give you the option of either typing it into the chat box, or if you want to unmute your line, you're welcome to, just long enough to ask your question, but then please remute your line so we don't have a lot of background noise. And while we wait for questions to come in for those who are typing them in, I'm going to go ahead and remind everybody once again that we have 2 more lunch webinars scheduled for this month. The next one is Tuesday, April 18th. That's the one with data quality and integrity and calibration. And then the following week on Thursday, April the 27th, that'll be the 3rd and final webinar for April. And that is also the one that is co-sponsored by the Charlotte section. And that one is Lean Transformation in Global Procurement. That's pretty much all we have as far as announcements are concerned. I'm not seeing any questions coming into the chat box. Oh, now I'm seeing a question just showed up in the chat box. Oh, we got them coming in. Okay. First one, how do you recommend clarity for statement of work?
Okay, well, for me, normally statement of work comes across in our task order. So when we feed back to our customer, hopefully I'm going the direction you want, Emily, but when we are responding to a solicitation, we take what we know about the customer, and we also look at the statement of work, and we try to pick what we've done in the past, and knowing what we know of the customer, write it up so that the customer, it will resonate. Basically, we want to take what the customer is saying and turn it back on them in their words. But as far as getting the statement of work, that's basically like an order. We just take it and follow it. So we take the statement of work, this many reports in this time frame to do these processes. We just follow those. Does that answer your question, Emily? Okay.
She responded yes.
Yep. And Norval, I took down my brief, and so I'm seeing the chat now. So I'm good to go.
Okay, great. Okay.
No. All right. So Griselda, how can I go from tacit to explicit knowledge? Well, tacit to explicit knowledge, it's very easy. If you take what you know and you write it down and you get it put into a process, like I'm taking something very easy, like making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. If you know how you do it, you grab your bread, your knife, or your spoon, or peanut butter and jelly, you put it all together. If you can write down so somebody else can do the same thing you're doing in your head, but they can do it from a piece of paper, you're making that knowledge tacit to explicit. Same thing with the process of talking to a customer. If you know the customer likes to get pre-briefed, we have one admiral that likes to see his stuff go through OneNote. My boss, who works more closely with the customer than I do, that customer specifically, he writes things up in OneNote. He's also gotten that to be a process over in that building with the admiral. But in order for me to know what to do, he'd have to sit down with me. I'd have to write it down, where I'd have it explicitly written down for directions and follow that. So that's a really good way to follow it, and you can take that and somebody else can learn from that, and then it turns back to tacit. All right. Hey, Luis. The breakdown lines from within along various lines of business who may represent. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Now, as I said, I work for McKean, so when I say with them, I always call it within for McKean. That kind of resonates with my organization here. To like that. All right. Are there any more questions? How can you, Emily, I'm so glad you're here. I did not plant you, but I'm glad you're here. How do you confirm your communication was effective? Well, for me, I have to go back and, because my customers, I have 2 of my customers that aren't here, because I'm in Virginia Beach, so I'm here in Virginia. And so when I need to confirm something, I just call them. I can send an email, and I have one customer that I read receipts on, and he doesn't answer his emails right away. And I have another customer, he answers it within the hour. So I have to call my first customer, but if I don't get feedback saying I need something changed, or if I don't get, hey, did you do this, do you do that, you know, and I pretty much know my customers by now. I've been with these same customers for almost 5 years, so it's been pretty good. But you know, that's how I know if it's effective. If I get information across to them and I don't get feedback saying that I've messed something up or they need some changes, it doesn't even need to be bad. It just needs to be minor changes. If I can get that right the first time, if I get a first pass yield of, you know, hey, this is good. If I get the looks good, I'm very happy with that. You know, but as far as my customers go, that's how I do it with them. Other people may have other ways of doing it. They may follow up with them and say, hey, how did this work for you? Some people are more passive. If they wait and just see what the customer says to them, that may not be the best way to do business, but they may be so busy with other things they may not have time to cater to everything the customer wants. But if you wait and see if you get feedback from them, or if you know that they're going to call you up and complain about something, that's how you know it's not effective. But if you know it's effective, if you get either good feedback or no feedback, and you see that your work is being passed on the same way you sent it to them, that's usually the best way. You're welcome.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions come up. One quick thing before I forget. This came up the last webinar that we had. I see another question did come up, but we'll get to that in just a second. If you're on a government-issued laptop or computer, for example, you may not have been able to log into this, and we're not able to see your name on the attendees list as actually having been here. But you may have been still able to call in. If you've just called in, we can't see you. I put up the section's Gmail address. If you're online, or I'm sorry, if you're on the phone but not online, please send us an email so that way we know and can issue you a certificate for attendance today. Go ahead with the, I see there's another question just came up.
Yes, hey, me too. Yes, there is a maturity model. I don't remember the exact name of it, but I know there's an organization, a knowledge management model on APQC's website. So they have a really good one there. I just can't remember the name of it. But if you go to APQC, I believe it's .org, they have some stuff that's available to the public. I don't believe ASQ is a member of APQC, but I'll see what I can find and send to you, because I know I'm on LinkedIn with you, and I can also send it to Norval. So
that would be fine.
All right. You're welcome.
Okay, just a quick time check. It looks like it's 12:45, so we still have a few more minutes for questions. If anybody would like to take a moment to ask a question. If you don't have any questions, that's fine too. It looks like another question just came across.
Yep, I see it. Do I have an example of a real challenging communication breakdown? How I overcame the challenge? Wow, put me on the spot there. Well, not really since I've been here, because I've had the same customers, so I've gotten to know them. But while I was in the Navy, I was on a ship. My last ship I was on was, I think, 2007, 2008 was my last tour there, and I had 3 different commanding officers. And my commanding officer, my specialty was in Tomahawk, and so my commanding officer didn't really understand what Tomahawk was. So it was really challenging to get him to understand why I needed him in combat to watch the scenarios that was happening, because as you've seen recently, ships do shoot tomahawks. So we had a couple of exercises. We do exercises with surface ships. They happen weekly, but they're really early. They're not your standard 9 to 5 time. They're start about 6 o'clock in the morning for these exercises. So to have the commanding officer go down there, he thought he could just send one of the division officers down or the department head down to find out, hey, what's going on and approve plans. But when it comes to actually executing it, the importance is that the commanding officer is there, because there's very little time to play stump the chump and answer a bunch of questions. So what I did is I had them run a drill during the day, an internal drill, and I had the commanding officer come down during the daytime for him to see all the challenges that were going on, and then explain to him, why he had to, why there are certain things. And they do teach them this in the commanding officer schools before they get there, and there are special schools for this kind of stuff. But it was really, that was a big challenge, not just for me, but for my crew, my team in general, because the whole crew has to be participant in an actual launch, but the commanding officer is the one that gives them permission to launch it. So that's my one example I could think of on the spot here. But thank you, Douglas. I appreciate that. You're welcome. Okay, well, if there's not any more questions, you all get 11 minutes back to your day. So hopefully you had a good time. This is interesting for me. I can tell you, it scared the bejesus out of me to be sitting here talking to everybody, but it was a good experience. I appreciate Norval and Mewtwo for inviting me to speak.
Yeah, and thanks for joining us, Dr. Young. We really appreciate it. It was a very excellent talk today, and we appreciate your taking the time to share it with us.
Well, thank you, and I hope to meet some of y'all in person. Thank you.
And thanks again. I hope everybody has a good rest of your day. That's it for now. Thank you, and goodbye, folks.